My friends, it's another wrestling day and everybody is mad, which makes me so darn happy because we can make some content. And that's because AEW Dynasty 2025 is in the books, and we're just going to talk about the main event because that is where the big discussion, the big story has come from. And do not forget to check out my whole review, my whole recap over on What Culture Wrestling is called. Ups and Downs. It is a wrestling review recap show. But here we sit down and we kind of just chill out a little bit and we get into the nitty gritty. And please do subscribe to me. The button's right there, and go subscribe to them. But, I mean, we may as well start with the headlines because it's nice and easy to do it that way. No, I wasn't particularly fond of the main event. That doesn't mean I think AEW is dying. That doesn't mean I think this show was a total disaster and that we should shut everything down. I just think it comes down to the usual thing that people are talking about, which is the Death Rider storyline hasn't really caught on as expected. And for one reason or another, Tony Khan has decided to hold off on that because he has a bigger picture down the line. Now, it's going to be really interesting what that is, because I have now decided, given the sort of little beats that we did throw in there last night, that at All In, I do believe it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Will Ospreay. I think Will Ospreay is going to win the Owen Hart Cup, and I think William Ospreay is going to be the guy to take the belt off Jon Moxley, and that probably was going to be the idea back in 2024. We decided to go with the Bryan Daniels stuff instead, because of course he was retiring. I can never get mad at that, right? I'm not going to retroactively pretend that wasn't one of the best things I've ever experienced in wrestling. I was lucky to be there in the second row. I did not deserve that, but what a cheeky SOB I am. It was an incredible moment. Swerve Strickland played his role perfectly. Seeing Bryan Danielson have that moment with the final countdown, his family in the ring. I get it was in London, only miles from where Will Ospreay grew up, but sometimes things do land in your lap, and I think it would have been a mistake not to have done that. And there's almost a beautiful irony, if that's the right word, of Bryan Danielson winning it over here and then Will Ospreay winning it over in America, given where they're both from. But it really doesn't matter. Will Ospreay is probably more over in England, just for obvious reasons. But it's not like he's not super duper over in the USA. People love him. And he's arguably AEW's number one babyface. So if that it does happen, and it's the most satisfying and brilliant moment ever, then maybe you will go back through all these losses and go, actually, wasn't that bad at all. It's difficult. Like, a lot of people are now comparing it to WrestleMania 39 when Roman Reigns defeated Cody Rhodes and nobody saw that coming. And I think we all said, I certainly said it over and over, if Cody hadn't won at 40, you would have looked back and gone, oh man, that was redonkulous. Especially because during that year, I'm not trying to compare the two, I'm just trying to compare the way people were feeling. There was a lot of rhetoric of, oh my gosh, Roman is doing all this stuff and he doesn't need to be the champion. Then we had that amazing WrestleMania 40 main event and everybody was cool with it. Now, I'm not saying the same thing is going to happen here. I'm just using my own experiences as a fan to try and copy and paste it onto different moments. But speaking of where we are now, again, because we don't know that's going to happen, that's still a few months away, I think Swerve Strickland should have won. I think it's disappointing that he didn't. And I do agree with the idea that maybe Jon Moxley isn't getting, oh man, how dare you do that heat. And it's more just a bit like, you know what, I can take it or leave it, and we're going to see what happens. Now, actually, I think the Young Bucks coming back and screwing over Swerve is brilliant. I think AEW is way better with the Young Bucks on TV. If this does tie into the fact that they were leading the Death Riders, there's a lot of story work we need to do there, but it would make sense in terms of the overall objective, because before Matt and Nick Jackson ran away, they were trying to destroy the company, which is essentially what Jon Moxley's group is trying to do too. I do understand it may be hard to swallow that Matt and Nick Jackson would be the people bossing Jon Moxley around, but maybe that comes back to why they were shredding the papers. Like, I would much rather AEW tried something creatively than just didn't do anything at all. I think that's boring. And of course, you are going to get weekly TV until we're all dead. Wrestling is going to die way after we do. So you don't always want to stick to the status quo. Once again, I think that's super dull. So I need to see Dynamite before I make a decision on that. But I was pleased to see them, but that was also mixed with the idea of, yes, I think Swerve Strickland should be the world champion right now. Sometimes I just think you've got to give the audience what they want and put a smile on their face. And you don't hear many people saying they're into this Death Riders stuff. But I also do respect Tony Khan, again, for having this plan, whatever it may be, and wanting to stick to it. Maybe that will be more beneficial. We don't know until it happens. It really, really is a difficult thing. But I don't think it affects the overall pay-per-view. The Swerve Moxley match, I mean, they're obviously talented wrestlers. I didn't massively get into it. Maybe I never truly believed that Swerve was going to do it, and that was kind of creating a negative Nancy feeling in my tum-tum. It's kind of getting a bit silly. The Death Riders are always allowed to get involved, and Marina Shafir is always allowed to get involved, and it was nice that Prince Nana was there for a little bit of balance. But you would think eventually AEW would be like, well, maybe you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be out there, because you are really putting a spanner in the works time and time again. It ties in, very strange tie-in, why I wasn't a big fan of the Chris Jericho Bandido match. They worked really good together. together. I think they have great chemistry. That's the third match I believe they've had, and every single one has been good. And I understand the idea of making people go, oh my gosh, I can't believe Jericho has won again. Actually very astute. I would assume that was a Chris Jericho idea. But sometimes you just want the good guy to win and the bad guy to lose. And having it where you trick the audience that Chris Jericho has won, but he actually hasn't, and then using Bandido's family for them to talk to the refs, and the refs go, well, we're just going to believe you. Well, now you've created a massive black hole, or a plot hole, I should say, and a black hole too, because things are going to be sucked into it, where all the times we've done it in the past have to be ignored. And unless you are going to do this time and time again, well, we're kind of screwed. Like, Marina Shafir was getting involved. Was it a no DQ match? Maybe it was. That probably isn't the best example. But there will be time and time again, said Cyndi Lauper, where people will now get involved and there'll be a finish to the match. And if someone doesn't walk out, somebody's mate, and go, well, actually, by the way, this is what happened, and the referee doesn't turn it around, you'd be like, well, why did we do it on that night? And I am not a massive stickler for continuity. I know I should be, but if something is goofy and entertains me, then I'm fine with it. This one just kind of felt like to me as well, why can't Bandido just win? Why can't he just win? Chris Jericho's the bad guy. He's been super horrible. He was yelling at his family the whole time. I don't think you needed to do the double swerve, really. Swerve is the theme of the day with this show. I'm sure there's other people out there that love the fact they went on a mini roller coaster. There were so many little other elements on this show, especially because you had the FTR heel turn as well. You don't always need to do tomfoolery like over and over again, because if you do too much tomfoolery, then nothing feels like tomfoolery. That was Vince Russo's problem. Vince Russo thought you needed to have a turn and a twist all of the time, to the point the actual turn and the twist was not doing a turn and a twist. It's a bit like a riddle. But we mentioned the Rated FTR stuff. That was excellent. Match of the Death Riders was brilliant. Super happy that the Ops were there in the main event, because now we know those trios titles aren't going to disappear. And that was my only other worry. I want them to be featured more. And the Ops versus the Death Riders, I'm totally cool with that. You know, Dax has been teasing this for a while. The Cash Wheeler thing was hilarious because he pretended he wasn't going to do it, even though quite clearly him and Dax had this plan for a while. But that's the kind of wrestling I don't want to go away. It's like how you can throw somebody out of the Royal Rumble even though you've been eliminated. Never take it away. That's the kind of non-continuity that I want to remain, because it's just silly. That's what I'm just referring to. We can bring it double it back round here. But that was really, really well done. I felt sorry for Adam Copeland. FTR, for some reason, are just better as heels, even though in real life they're the nicest people ever, and I love them, and it's always good when we get to catch up. You'd have to think as well that All In is going to be them versus Christian and Edge, we'll just call it, Adam Copeland and Christian. How you make Christian Cage a face, I don't know, but we do have time. Any wrestling company should be able to sit down, especially someone like Adam Copeland just gets pro wrestling. You should be able to figure it out. And as long as it makes you feel something here once again, you can do whatever you want. I mean, Nick Wayne has kind of been shifting away from the patriarchy too. Maybe it's something with Killswitch or Luchasaurus coming back, I don't know, but I like that. That gets me excited. But that does also tie into the main event, because of course Hangman Adam Page comes out. You don't know who he's going to buckshot, but eventually he did drop the Deadeye on Moxley. So that's not to say that he wouldn't have tacked Swerve as well, but we do know that was at least one of his intended targets. So it sort of feels like, given the Young Bucks screwed over Swerve, and given now that I presume, again, a lot of speculation here on my end, so more for me, that the wild card will be Jack Perry in the Owen Hart Cup, and that will stop Hangman Adam Page, we're probably going to get, and maybe there's a third man I'm not thinking of, but at the very least, you're probably going to get Hangman and Swerve taking on the Young Bucks. I just think it's too soon. And maybe I am being a bit silly here. Maybe someone needs to come and thump me on the head, which is more than fair. I just think if there's going to be a mutual respect between them because of everything they did on Dynamite, which was really cool, you know, Swerve Strickland saying, I understand that I did deserve it. I think you want the world title match first, where they fight as not friends, but acquaintances. Like, they've got rid of their crazy hatred for each other, and either Swerve wins or Hangman wins. I don't think it really matters as long as you tell it in the right way. And then after that, they can get more respect for each other because one of them does just beat them, you know, fair and square. And it's that then leads to the tag team, whereas this feels like it's going to lead to the tag team. We're going to do it the other way around. But that would have required Swerve Strickland to have won the championship here, and then the finals of the Owen would have been Swerve versus Hangman, and again, they would have had a regular match, which is kind of in reverse, but they're such good characters, I think you could get away with it. But then you can walk in here and say, but Simon, you just said, well, Ospreay winning would be good. That's also true. So there are lots of parallels and lots of sort of narrative paths that we're walking down. I just think John Moxley still having that championship for another May, June, July, 3 months, it's going to be a challenge. I don't actually know who his contenders are going to be, but let's try and focus on the good stuff. Young Bucks being back, good. Hangman Adam Page is such a compelling character. Swerve Strickland is such a star. He could deal with anything. He'll know. He'll figure it out, right? That's just what he's going to do. Rated FTR, really good. Bandido being the Ring of Honor champion is great. That is what we should be doing with him. And there were some terrific matches on here. Like, I did like the fact we had Owen Hart Cup tournament matches because it makes the tournament feel more important. Obviously, the con to that is you could have put these as the main events of Dynamites or Collisions, but then not every single AEW pay-per-view can be a super banger. It just can't. I do think that maybe in hindsight, because this wasn't going to be of those levels that we have seen, we should have condensed it a little bit. I personally, we've talked about it, I think AEW pay-per-views are too long, but I know many people that have got in touch with me and said, "But yeah, Simon, we're dropping $50 and I want bang for the buck." Somewhat irony there, and I get that. So I don't want to lean on that too much, but this one especially, I did feel like you could have chopped off some time. But Mercedes versus Julia Hart, I thought Julia Hart had a great showing. It was a little bit wibbly-wobbly in the start, but that's okay. These things happen. The last 5 minutes was great, and the fans were super duper behind Julia. Mercedes got the win. Toni Storm versus Megan Bayne was really good, but I absolutely would have built Megan Bayne up more as a monster, because I never actually thought she was going to win. I think if you had done this All In after 3 months of destruction by Megan Bayne, I think people would have bought it, especially some of the near falls. But I don't mind Toni winning with a surprise roll-up. I probably wouldn't have had Mercedes win with a surprise roll-up too. Will Ospreay versus Kevin Knight. I mean, it's just a Will Ospreay match. But if you're that good at doing that kind of match, why wouldn't you do it? Like, why would you do anything else? So if I make the best pizza ever, Simon, can you make me a burger? No, man, I'm a pizza dude. I'm going to give you that. And Kevin Knight, even though he lost, man, he will benefit so much from that. Because he went toe-to-toe from Will Ospreay. Give him some promo time, get his character across, put him in some matches that he can win. Again, he was a last-minute replacement for Jay White anyway. You really could have something within 6 months with this guy. I think he's that good. And I was lucky enough to see him. He was on a Progress Defy show I was on in New York or Chicago end of last year. You just knew instantly. Obviously, I'd seen him on television, but when you see someone live, you do get a totally different feel for their work. And yeah, just really good. That trios match was good, and then you got the heel turn at the end, so maybe that was one of the best things. Although really the triple threat was the best. Kenny Omega versus Speedball Mike Bailey versus Ricochet. Ricochet is a heel. You can talk about people going from WWE to AEW and vice versa. He totally made the right choice. He feels like a completely different person. So no longer can you throw these barbs at him like, oh, you don't understand the sports entertainment side. He's very sports entertaining. I've always been such a fan of Mike Bailey. I don't think he gets the due that he deserves. He's a one of a kind in wrestling as far as I'm concerned, the way that he approaches it, the way that he sees it, and I think he'll be a benefit to the entire promotion. And Kenny Omega is just one of the goats. He just is now. That always sets people off, but his work, the way he talks, the way he holds himself, the way he puts matches together, the man is absolutely brilliant. I will say that until the very end. And I think it's the best three-way AEW has ever done. There's been a couple of other ones that people talk about, but I just thought this was so good. And the finish was so creative. Like, I really enjoyed it. Ricochet going for the Avalanche Vertigo. Omega sneaks up on him, gives Ricochet the most terrifying Avalanche one-winged angel. And Mike Bailey tries to break up the cover, but he puts himself in the Tree of Woe position. And once again, execution is everything. It felt like a bunch of dominoes falling, and everybody felt protected by this, which is really, really hard to do. And obviously, Kenny Omega and Okada facing off. We are going to get Kenny Omega versus Okada at All In Texas, the first time they've ever fought on US soil, or probably outside of Japan. I think that's fair. Could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that's 99% accurate. Some people, that's going to mean the world to. Other people, even if you don't care, trust me, you will care when they do it. They understand the legacy. They understand what they need to do, especially we are going to merge those titles, which I also think is a great plan. And if they do steal the show in the way that they should do, again, if you know the other 3 or 4 matches they had, you're going to lose your mind. If you don't, you then, after the fact, going to go watch the other 3 or 4 matches they've had, because it's going to blow your mind. It's one of the greatest feuds that has ever happened within all of professional wrestling, as far as I'm concerned. So that is great. So let's not pretend there aren't a bunch of positives that we can draw from this. I still think, I said this in the What Culture video too, that the tag team titles need a fire lit under them. It's really weird. We have a great team that has them as the champions. Like, the Hurt Syndicate are so damn good. One of the most overacts in the company. And I love Big Bill and Brian Keith, but because they were just thrust into it from nowhere, and that was kind of because the Murder Machines got injured. But Brian Keith had to just act like the coward, which I understand, because the Hurt Syndicate would go oversell for Big Bill, which they have to do because he's big. I think it was just one of those ones where you knew it wasn't going to change hands. So that was just a little bit disappointing, because I think we have something both as a team or individually with Brian Keith and Big Bill. But again, I suppose the upside, if we're going to draw it from that, is if they are splitting up the learning tree, those two have benefited from it, and then they can go off on their own little way. And really, they should be like, oh, Chris Jericho, you lost. What did you learn? Absolutely nothing. You're a goober. So, and obviously Adam Cole winning the TNT title as well before I start to wrap up. Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia is great. He really, really is. But obviously the reason this stood out to me is because Adam Cole, I do believe it's his 17th anniversary of when he started wrestling. So thumbs up for that guy. I guess the 7th, I don't know. I always get that confused. Everything that he's been through, I think we forget about. And this doesn't make a difference if you haven't done this. But because I do wrestle, it does give me a very interesting perspective. And I know how hard injuries are. And I know how hard they are to come back from, what they do to your brain and what they do to your confidence. So for Adam Cole to come back, go through all the other crap that he had to go back because people were just throwing horrible words at him, and to put on a performance like that and become, the TNT champion, and yes, that belt needs a fire lit under it as well, and hopefully he can be the guy to do that. But it made me feel warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. I love Adam Cole to begin with because he's just a super nice guy. That's way more important than whatever you do in wrestling, but he's a great wrestler too. And it kind of feels like he's finding his feet again, which is also ironic because he had a new bone put in his foot, and he can still operate like this. Like, that's crazy. And he had all those concussion things, and I think he broke up with Britt Baker and he moved house. Well, that's none of my business, but I can totally understand how it could affect you emotionally to walk out there in front of thousands of people. I understand the legacy that you have too, and what people may be expecting of you. Totally awesome, totally brilliant, and maybe that was actually the best moment of the night, because I just like, man, Adam, I'm so pleased for you, and that's what you should do when you have a babyface. You should root for them. And you probably could turn Daniel Garcia heel if you wanted to. Maybe he's better as a heel. I don't know, but we need to do more of that title. I think that's totally fair. So when you actually look at it like that, I thought it was a decent pay-per-view. No, it wasn't up to the level of some of the other ones. Yes, the main event was a little bit squiffy, but I don't want to go through the beats again. But the Young Bucks coming back, the heel turn, some of the title changes, just having people get an opportunity. Like Julia Hart, who's only 23 years old, by the way, being in there with Mercedes, and absolutely on the back end holding her own. This is all good stuff. And then you get the Will Ospreay match, which is nuts, and you get to see Kenny Omega perform. So no, it's not the end of days. You don't need to sit there and go absolutely crazy for no reason. Even if you did think this was the drizzling shibs, to use my own words, somebody else is going to enjoy it, because that's how the world works. And if you really can't understand that, and you really want to go on your grift and start pretending that unless someone else gets on this case, they're doing it wrong, absolutely not. Maybe somebody woke up today and they've had a terrible weekend, and just watching 72 hours of pro wrestling was all that they needed. And even if it was mediocre, which it wasn't, but even if it did feel that way, that was what they needed on that time. I'm sick of it. It's bottom of the barrel criticism. It really is. Just waving your arms around and shouting for no reason, and then getting mad because somebody else liked it. Anybody can do that, right? I could get Elmo. Elmo wouldn't do it, because Elmo's a wonderful person. But you could get anybody to do it. It requires no watching of the product. It requires no product knowledge. You could literally watch one AEW show. There's no nuance, and it's stupid. And if I have to be the person to extinguish it, well, you know what? I won't do that, because, again, everybody's allowed their opinion, but I'm still going to throw out mine as well. And speaking of opinions, I'm in so much trouble now. I'm an idiot. Drop me a comment down there. Please engage with the video. Like the video, share the video, subscribe, click the video on the screen, which is me talking about how WrestleMania 41. I said gone off the rails. That's a bit unfair. I mean, it did, though. Like Kevin Owens being out and the whole Charlotte Flair and Tiffany thing, that wasn't part of the plan, so it has gone off the rails. I still think it's going to be a great show. Surprise, surprise. Mr. Positive Simon Miller. Otherwise, just interact with everything as best as you can. That's the most important thing. And again, go to GorillaMind.com/Simon. Use the code Simon to get 10% off. These are the supplements I use, and I love them very, very much. Otherwise, Simon316 on social media, where you can also tell me that I'm a goober. Ruin myself. Cameo is Simon Miller. TikTok is Simon J. Miller. ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. SimonMiller.BigCartel.com for merchandise there. Wear my stupid designs. Put a smile on your face. Know that I'm sending you all the love in the world, and this idiot will see you very soon.